come to the end of my journey, coming down, going up to the Whitsundays and back again. Quite a few people wanted to know what the difference between the Nolex is and the Stratos, my Space Sailor 20. Well, Space Sailor 20 is just is a fantastic boat. Really sails well with one person on board and is really great fun for going up to the Whitsundays. Because it's such a small boat, you really it's a bit like camping. You know, you've got to get your get the galley out, get your washing up bowl out, and move out and get stuff out the fridge from outside. It's just the same as basically camping, and there's no headroom down below. But otherwise, it's really good, and for extended cruising, the big downfall with it is it hasn't got headroom, so you're always crouched all the time. So by the time I've done 3 months on Stratos, I've got a bad back. With the Nolex, it's got headroom, you know, throughout, basically as far as nearly to the front, and it's got a galley and got a stove, and it's got a fridge downstairs, so it makes making a meal a lot easier. You know, you haven't got to go through your lockers, get people out of their seats in order to find the food that's underneath them. So, you know, that's the benefits. It's far easier to cruise. The difference between the engines, you know, this Stratos has got an outboard, which kind of it makes you think every time you go somewhere. You know, you've got to plan your sailing a bit more because you've only got so much outboard juice, you know, so many miles you can do. So you probably can do, say, or maybe 20 miles into rough sea with how much fuel, with 50 litres of fuel on board. You know, in a rough sea you use a lot. So, and on the Nolex, it's got a diesel. I carry 50, probably 60 litres of fuel on board, which is even whatever the sea is or whatever else, you're going to do about 5 knots, 2 litres an hour. So it's very efficient, the diesel engine is. So, you know, you never have to worry about how many miles, you know, how many hours you've got to do. You know, you've got 30 hours of diesel in your tank, so that, you know, that will get you anywhere basically along the coast. So that is a great benefit. Plus it charges your batteries as you're going, whereas the outboard, the charging coil on the outboard is not worth a cracker. When it comes to expenses, well, there's no doubt about it, Stratos is far cheaper to run. You know, I reckon that you take the insurance, $600, registration is $300, and the trailers $200. They're your major expenses, and then running the boat, you know, sails and just wear and tear probably is another $1,000 a year. So, you know, you're talking about $2,500 to run Stratos. And the other thing is when you come home and you put it beside the house and you put a big cover over it, it's like in hibernation. The money stops. You can even deregister it. You know, my advice to anybody, if they don't use their trailer sailor very often, they should, as soon as they finish, they should stop, take that, you know, ticket down to the transport and deregister their boat, because it costs you nothing. There's no penalty for deregistering it, and there's no penalty for starting it up again. So, you know, why wouldn't you? If you only use it for 6 months of the year, deregister it and you're saving yourself $150. With a trailer, it's a different kettle of fish, because if you deregister the trailer, then you've got to go and get it roadworthy again. You know, but I just pay the $200 a year and be done with it, and I can still go and take it for a sail. The Nolex, the insurance on it is about $870 a year. The mooring is $2,400 to what else have we got there? The registration is the same as Stratos, which is 300. What have we got now? And then the wear and tear, you know, as well. It's a lot more money. I don't know what it is, you know, but hey, I've got to anti-foul it, so there's I use half of everything basically, so it cost me probably 220 bucks or something like that to anti-foul the bottom of the boat per year. I generally do that when I pull it out on the trailer, or other times I scrub this boat because I get terrible amount of weed and barnacles on it, even though when you got after 3 months of having new anti-fouling on it in the river. So when I sail out there and go over towards the sand hills, I've got a little hooker and I dive on it and scrape the barnacles off. I don't bother with the weed because the weed, there isn't much weed. It's 90% of it's barnacles that's slowing me down. And when I after about 6, 7 or 8 months, I scrub the weed off, and when I go up to the Whitsundays, I generally give it a coat of anti-fouling when I'm about halfway up. But it's a very nice boat, and I bought it basically because my wife deserves a bigger boat, and she's quite happy to be paying the bills on this one. She sees it that the bigger the expense of this boat, it makes her holidays a lot better. She's happy to be able to sit and read a book and have a nice seat and everything. So it's been well worth it in that way. As you can see in a previous video, I went through a bit of a Queensland storm, and I was too lazy to take the dinghy, deflate the dinghy and put it on the deck. That was my first mistake. Second mistake was tying it on the back of the boat. I should have put the dinghy and tied it underneath the rudder basically and back to the boat, so that the painter was basically in the water, so when the wind blew, that the wind could not get underneath the dinghy. And if it did get underneath the dinghy, all it could do was flip it. So that wasn't a learning curve. I knew that before it happened, but I just had no excuse for it but laziness. Anchoring, I think I've got 50 kilos of chain in the front locker, which is 32 meters, which equates to 32 meters of 8mm chain. And when I bought the boat, that came with the boat, and when I bought the boat it had a CQR on the front, and I didn't want that. I've had a CQR on Stratos, and they drag in sand, so I treated myself to a Rockner, which was quite an expensive exercise. But I've had a good run with a Rockner, and I've never dragged once yet, and that's even on a short scope of 1 in 3 off the bottom when it's blowing quite hard. So yeah, I really quite like my Rockner. When I went up this last time, I have a Garmin 72 which I took off Stratos, and it had a great anchor alarm on it, and when I was going up, I left it out in the cockpit, and one day it got the sun on, smack in the, everything must have been right, and it just melted the screen on it, so it was totally useless. So by the time I got to Fraser, this happened, and I'd got all the rest of the way and all the way back to go, and my phone didn't have a GPS on it. So when I came back, I went to buy another Garmin 72 second hand, and they were quite expensive, to be honest. And then I thought, well, bugger, I'll go and buy a new 73, and the 73 is a very cheap 72. The screen's not so good, the alarm's hopeless, the beep's too quiet, and they wanted $200 for it, and I thought, I can buy a phone with a GPS on it for that sort of figure. So I'd Nokia. Found it quite good, and then I went and bought a app which is, after researching a bit, was Anchor Pro. Comes from Lithuania. It's quite a good app, you know, and when the boat drags, you can, you know, put a circle around it and everything like that for what your perimeters of the drag is, and when it goes off it sounds like a, you know, a fire truck coming, but you know, in the boat. So I'm really pleased with that, and it was for quite a long way up. I've got the, you know, the one I've got on the boat is a, anyway, I don't know what my plotter is on the boat. I've taken it off at the moment, but that, believe it or not, didn't have an anchor alarm on it. And I find that, you know, when you're going up the coast, you definitely need an anchor alarm. It's dangerous not to have one. This Nolex has got a diesel engine in. When I bought it, it had done 300 hours. I've done now, I think it's 1100 hours is on the hour meter. I've got through 2 water pump seals. I haven't changed the impeller or anything, but the seals, it drips, and once I've got a drip, it's not very good, and it sets off my yeah, I've got 2 of these things in the bilge. They're alarms for going under your washing machine. So if I get a leak in my engine, say from the raw water pump, and it drips down in there, one of these will go off. And I'll just put it down in here. Here's a cup of water. I'm just going to pour that down in the bilge, and you'll slowly, and you'll hear it go off. And pretty effective. You don't need much water in there, and if you've got a bilge which is dry, and just to stop it going off, you just clean the contacts and ready to go back in again. It's off. Well, I put 2 in the engine. I put, because it's separated, so I have one under where the pump is, and I put one under where the oil pan is. So basically, if I get a leak, it only needs a half a cupful of oil or water, and then the alarm will go off. It makes a hell of a racket, and then you'll think, what the hell's that? And you go down there and you find out that the hose has come off or something, which happened once after I faffed around with the engine, took the hoses off, rerouted things. Anyway, about a week later, the bloody hose came off when I was motoring out the river, and I wondered what the devil the noise was. I thought it was the alarm of the engine, but it wasn't that. It was one of the things gone off underneath the engine. Well, thank you for, you know, listening to my rant, and all the best and good luck with your own sailing wherever you are. I'm really enjoying mine, and this year I won't be going back up to the Whitsundays, I don't think. I've got a son at school, and I want to see him get through and get a reasonable OP. I did the same for my daughter, and I'm going to do, you know, you have to be equal with these things, so I'm going to do the same for him.